Hi, and welcome to another edition of Newsmakers Journal of the Vaccine Year. It is Friday, October 15th. I'm Jerry Roberts, and I am joined by our top local journalist, Jade Martinez-Pogue, and Josh Molina. Nick Welsh is allegedly checking in from Mars sooner or later, probably later. Jade, 8 deaths this week in COVID. What's going on? Things getting worse? Things getting better?
The daily cases seem to be staying around the same. So it's kind of plateauing. Like I said last week, no spike, no drop. So I think the deaths might just be a delay in the cases from a few weeks ago and a month ago. But yeah, there was like a week where the deaths we weren't having any, and then they started picking up again. So
yeah, it's always been a lagging indicator, but yeah, it's just what we're up to. I think 516 in the county so far, and I'm glad to see you're pointing out that the people who died were over 70 and had underlying conditions. So we're still blaming the victims in COVID. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I've always appreciated it. Anything more that would indicate where we are with vaccines, if people are getting more or not getting more? And also, are they tracking booster shots or not?
I don't see any booster shots on the public health dashboard that I check. We're about almost 70% of the eligible population is fully vaccinated. So it's going up, but it seems to be going up pretty slowly. It's been in the 60% for a few weeks, months now.
All right, but and some of those who have not been vaccinated, I take it, were in the parking lot once again at the Santa Barbara School Board meeting this week. But it seemed like that had died down a little bit. There weren't as many people.
Yeah, I went to take photos for Josh's story. So the meeting started at 5:30 and the COVID report was supposed to start at 6. I went there around 6. There were about 5 to 7 people standing in the parking lot. No signs, no anything like that. They were just kind of crowded around a big speaker and they were all listening to it. One guy did tell me, he was like, we're going to keep coming here until they let us back into the meetings because they told us they're trying to keep us out. But nothing rowdy. There's a police car in the corner, kind of off to the side. They were just eating their dinner.
Yeah, well,
no masks.
Well, I guess after Hilda Maldonado, the superintendent, talked to the chief, they agreed on some deal to have a car there, a squad car there at the meeting, and so good to know that they didn't meet it and need it. And then, Josh, what was the tone of the comments? Was it any more civil than it's been previously, or are they still attacking the members? And what was the deal on the vaccines in the school district this week?
Well, Jerry, you tried with your very straight, literal intro, but you seem a little grumpy, and I think you would be remiss to not acknowledge the check swing. You know better than I do. If you're going to swing, swing. Don't stop and blame.
It wasn't a swing and it wasn't a strike. Okay, that's all I got to tell you. And that's the only thing that game's ever going to be remembered for.
Oh, no. Cody Ballinger won't be remembered at all. No, it's only Giants fans grumbling.
What's he hitting? 114 now? 115? Yeah, that put him up.
Well, we'll find out in the next round of the playoffs, Jerry.
I guess we will. Go Freddie Freeman. All right. What?
Okay, so the mood seemed to be a little bit more calm, a little bit less tense. Assistant Superintendent Fran Wagner gave a report talking about COVID and how kids are experiencing COVID at really high rates nationally. So that's why they really need to do everything they can to push vaccinations. But of course, the new piece was that now that Governor Newsom has ordered mandatory vaccination, it's sort of taken a lot of overt pressure off the board to say, we're doing this this is coming. It's just a matter of time, whether it's coming in January or July or whenever it gets approved. When it does, it's going to happen. So I think there's a little bit of a sense of this is the direction we're headed. Of course, there are people who are still calling in, and what they're saying is a lot of them are saying, I'm vaccinated and I think vaccination works, but we can't force people to get vaccinated because we know that it doesn't stop the spread necessarily. It does reduce the spread, but they'll say people, you can still get it, you can still pass it if you're vaccinated, and they're really hitting home on this sort of like First Amendment or their own individual civil liberties to not get tested. So I would say on that end, it was a bit of a dull week. I don't know if it's going to resume or pick up, but I think the bigger issue, or not the bigger issue, but one of the issues they do have a point on, the people who are upset against the district, is would be nice to have those meetings open up again, put a little podium, put it in the doorway, have them be able to talk. I mean, if our kids are going to school, I think the school board should open up fully to the public as well, and with social distancing and masks, but allow people to at least look at you face to face if you're going to be giving public comment.
Are other agencies letting people in? I guess the soups are, huh?
Yeah,
Jade?
I think most that I know of are doing, they still have the remote option, but they do let people in with masks.
And what about the city council? Are people packing the chambers?
City council, no. City council, they still meeting in their offices and zooming. So I don't know though. We should say.
Well, they're checking with the union about it though, Josh. They're asking the union about it.
Did Kate Ford ask you to say it that way, Jerry? Is that your view, or what's going on here? I don't think you should say, well, no one else is doing it, so they shouldn't do it. They're in a very specific situation, and they're asking our kids to go back to school. The kids have been going back to school. If nothing else, it's a little bit symbolic. Or why don't you hold your meeting in the parking lot or something? Figure out a way to meet these people halfway.
And
I
what
do
were
think
the?
it's
I'm
strange
sorry.
that-
Go ahead, Jade.
I do think it's strange that they haven't opened them back up to the public, and that they aren't themselves meeting together. That was allowed months ago. So it does
Yeah.
seem a little odd.
And what were the infection numbers this week, Josh, or approximately, or were they up or down, or?
There were about 17 students who tested positive for COVID-19. That would have been as of last Friday. So, as of the prior week, about 17. I think there's about 53 total who tested positive. So, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, with 12,500 students, it's not a whole lot percentage wise. And that's why the school district says, hey, what we're doing, we're working, we're doing things well, we're testing, we're going to have vaccinations. It's, working.
Yeah, but a lot of parents have not yet given their permission for testing, correct?
Yeah, there is a number of parents. I think there's something like 825 students in the district whose parents have not given consent yet, or they've not heard back. So I think that's, I don't know what's going to happen when the state gets involved, because that ruling affects private schools too, or independent schools. Really no way around it unless you want to homeschool your kid. I think that 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we'll look back and be like, why was everyone so worked up about vaccinations? But in the moment, it's very heated and it's controversial, but it's just going to be part of our lives, like every other vaccination kids have to get.
Yeah. And then, Jade, you spent most of your week covering the Alisal fire, and in fact, cheated death on the way back from Davis on Monday. Tell that story. What happened?
Yeah, so I was just driving back. We have a breaking news chat. I saw that there was a fire, but usually when there's a vegetation fire, it's fairly small, gets put out pretty fast. And I was driving around near like Buellton, I guess. I saw smoke from the other side of the mountain. I was like, oh, wow, their smoke must be pretty big. But as I came around the turn on 101 along the Gaviota coast, right after the tunnel, it was just, I saw flames like really close to the freeway, active flames, the hills were black, smoke everywhere. but I still saw cars driving, you know, coming from both ways. There were cars ahead of me. There were cars coming the other direction. So I just kept going, and about like 10 miles into it, the flames were getting closer. The car was getting hot. I could smell the smoke in my car, like ashes flying everywhere. Very Thomas Fire flashbacks. But then I just kept driving, and it got really smoky. I put on my brights, and then all of a sudden the big truck in front of me just like disappeared. The lights were gone. I couldn't see anything. I was on the right side of the highway because a lot of the flames were on that side of the mountain along the median. So I tried to get over, but I couldn't see anything. I ended up driving through the left lane into halfway into the median. I was stopped because I saw a flame right next to my car. My friend was like, "Oh, we're going off the road." So I like turned my wheel and just kept driving really slowly, but trying to go fast. I was ready to just ditch my car and run. Like I didn't know what I was going to do. But a few
And-
minutes after that, I got through it, and I looked
and
back and there were no cars behind me.
and recorded some of it for Facebook, even though you didn't turn the radio down. I noticed during that.
Yeah, there's a One Direction song in the background, but it said "Ready to Run," so I thought it was very fitting. It matched the tone.
All right. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm glad you made it. We're all glad you made it. That sounds like a scary episode. All right. So Josh, in politics this week, we got a couple things going on. One, in District 4, Barrett Reed returned, I guess what, $12,500 to a downtown real estate mogul, Jim Cannell, who gave it to him in $1,500 packages from 8 different business entities on the same day, June 21st, and led to an FPPC complaint, a Fair Political Practices Commission complaint, alleging that Cannell was trying to hide the source of it. What do you think? Is that going to have any effect? Does it kind of shine a light on Barrett's money, or what do you think?
You know, I think with things like this, it really just reinforces the way people already feel. If you already think Barrett is being bought by developers and is raising too much money to win a seat on the council, then this is your evidence that you need to continue to feel that way. I think if you're somebody who supports Christian, it's like, yep, here we go. This is just another example. If you're a Barrett Reed supporter, you're saying, well, Barrett doesn't know everybody who gives him money, and how is he supposed to know? And is he supposed to verify? I mean, he takes the money and he's campaigning, and so maybe he should know better, but he didn't. But as soon as he found out, he returned it. Let's move on. So I don't really think it sways a lot of votes. I don't think there are people in this race who are like, I can't decide between these two because they're such good choices. I think there are people who are basically decided already based off of ideology, right? He's the conservative guy. She's the Santa Barbara, liberal environmentalist. Barrett needs to sort of just reach more people. That's his thing. Name ID. How do I get more people to see me, recognize me, get to know me, and vote for me, not necessarily because he's a developer, I guess he wouldn't say he's a developer, but he does adaptive.
Oh, he says he's a redeveloper.
Developer. It is a no. I mean, obviously, you shouldn't be doing these kinds of things. Jim
Well, it's
Cannell
hard to look at it, just from the sort of normal person perspective, and not think that he was trying to hide the source of that. Not Barrett, hide the source of them. Keep his name out of it, because he gave a ton of money. And it's interesting because he did the same thing on the same day with Randy Rouse in the mayor's race. And I haven't talked to Randy yet, but I'm wondering if he's going to give the money back. And also something similar with Nina Johnson in September, and with Deborah Schwartz back in the spring. So, it kind of looks like he was trying to put together his own little slate there to me. I have a feeling the FPPC is going to investigate this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the bigger story is what you just outlined. Obviously, this was a targeted effort to make Barrett Reed look bad, this complaint. But it's not just money toward Barrett Reed. And I think there's a bigger story to be told in terms of, well, he did this to a lot of people. So he didn't do these to, he donated to a lot of these people. I have not been able to talk to Jim Cannell on this yet. So
No, I haven't either.
I haven't reported on it, but I know Kristen said it, and the Janet McGinnis, who filed the complaint, has been sending it to the media. So I mean, it doesn't look good. I don't know that it's going to sway anybody's vote, but it certainly does not look good.
Yeah, and then that came on top of the fines that the city levied. I can't recall. Barrett was not one of those, was he? Who filed late? That
No. It was everybody except Kathy in the mayor's race, as she pointed out, and Nina.
And Nina. And the weird thing about that was that they assessed them $10 a day per violation. And if you look at the city ordinance, it says $25 a day. And I asked the city attorney about that, and he said, "Oh, well, we went with the Political Reform Act, administrative discretion." And of course, the Political Reform Act was written in 1974, and the fine at that time was $10. So so there was some calculation going on, or this is going to look like too much or something behind closed doors. I think. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think it's interesting that again, this press release was put out regarding Nina Johnson so quickly, so swiftly. You just don't usually see that kind of an action that quickly. It usually takes the FPPC several months to do it, but probably if you're erring on a side, you're probably going to err on the lower side, because this is not stealing funds. This is not that kind of a complaint. This is people giving money and not following the rules, and worst case scenario, they're trying to hide it.
Yeah, I was hoping that June Starkey could join us today. She was unable to, but she refereed the District 4 debate. Did you happen to watch that one, Jade? Or
I haven't yet.
You were too busy trying to get your car repainted.
Too traumatized. Trying to
She's
recover.
too busy listening to One Direction, Jerry.
Did you watch it? I hope you watched it. You better have watched it.
Yes, I saw it, Jerry. I watched it. It was.
What? Was there any news?
It was not as gripping and compelling as the debate that we held. Where people alleged you were trying to actually fabricate, altercations. It wasn't like that, but it was. It was pretty good. Gee, Mr. Reed, what do you think of what Miss Sneddon said? No, I thought June did a good job. She was focused. She had good questions, kept them on point. It was a little loose. The independent forums have been loose, which I think has actually been kind of good, like less of the timer and more of like just kind of let them talk. So, it really didn't have much of they didn't really stand out. It wasn't a lot of news there. One thing, Barrett came out against the Las Canoas property for the housing up on the hill.
That surprised me. I thought he was all on board with that.
Yeah, I think another time and place he would be, but in an election when the people who live in that district are his district, and as we know, they're very opposed to this already, it probably makes a lot of political sense for him not to be saying, well, let's figure it out, because those are direct votes that he would lose by supporting that project. He is obviously, buddies with some of the people who are pushing this idea, but I think right now it's sort of like, okay, if we're not going to do it for the homeless, what can it be for? So this discussion has sort of shifted a bit.
How about a firefighters camp? That's about what it's appropriate for. But yeah, Richard Birdie. So you think that thing is a dead letter now? You think it's the putting a homeless in I don't know campus there is probably not a non-starter?
I have not heard about any fundraising. No one's told me that they've been able to get any significant amount of dollars toward the $14.2 million. I think outside of the context of an election, it might be something to discuss, but in the next month or so, it's way too political. You're not going to have anybody who's going to actually say, can we make that proposal work? Because everything's seen through the lens of, oh, how is this going to help me or hurt me politically? So maybe after the election, if Randy wins, Randy seems very close to them, maybe he'll figure out a way to push that. But my sense is betting money is that proposal to move the homeless people from downtown and have them there with supportive services in that facility is not likely to happen as of this moment.
Well, that's probably where Nick is right now. He's trying to gin up some more support for that thing since he so obviously has fallen in love with it based on his questions at his own mayoral forum. I was surprised about Barrett's thing and that. Going back to the thing about the Jim Cannell money, does Barrett's explanation, oh, I couldn't have possibly known who that was from, really pass the smell test there? I mean, I'm sure he and Cannell have met more than a few times, and he knows every property downtown, and those are all, the names of them are all the addresses of the various properties.
Well, I would say that it's in Santa Barbara and you're accepting donations and we're still a relatively small city. I would have a hard time believing that you don't know where your money came from. And if you don't know, probably should find out. I mean, you probably should be like, who's this company? Who's this organization? I want to know. The thing is, when you are in Santa Barbara, it is small town. So people think, oh, rinky dink, but actually the opposite. Everybody has like this micro lens on everything everybody does. And so you really can't get away with something like that. So, I mean, I'm not going to say he knew or he didn't know, but I would say if I were a political consultant, I would make sure my candidate knew everything that came in to avoid a situation like this.
Yeah. All right. And then one other thing, you had that great political strategist, Daraca Larimore Hall, on your podcast this week. And I don't know. Did you listen to the podcast or read any of the stories about it, Jade, in terms of what he said about James Joyce and the independent endorsement and stuff? I just wonder what your takeaway is.
I read something vaguely, but remind me what did he say?
Well,
I read I didn't watch it yet or listen.
Yeah, basically what he was saying, Josh, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the independent endorsed James Joyce because they wanted to get rid of Kathy, but there's too many Mexicans on the city council is pretty much what he was saying. And, you have to exchange one minority for another. And, I don't know, it really, I've rubbed me the wrong way, obviously. And I wrote about it. But I don't know, you were in the moment with him and you know him much better than I do. But I think a lot of people are kind of unhappy about that.
Well, it's both, Jerry. Obviously, the people who talk to you are the ones who are unhappy about it and don't like Daraca. And the ones who reach out to me are the ones who say, wow, he made a lot of really good points that no one else is willing to say. I don't think he said exactly what you said. I mean, I think what Daraca is saying, he's coming at it from a party perspective. From his perspective, Kathy votes the party line every time. Why would you replace her? And the only reason you'd replace her is you don't like her personality, you don't think she's a leader, and so you're going to go replace him with somebody else. You don't think
she's a leader? Now there's a terrible reason to replace somebody. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what he would say, was like, this is not about being a leader. This is about how do you vote?
Doing what I tell them to do. Yes.
And so what he's saying is, why would you replace her with somebody else who has no record of voting for the party or standing up for these same positions? And so that's what he's saying. Obviously, the counter argument to that is, if somebody's qualified and they want to run and they run, then people have the right to vote for them. And we can't have sort of kingmakers in the background. But I think his point is a little bit deeper, and he talks a little bit about gender and implicit bias and race. And do people really just not like Kathy because she's Mexican American and Latina? Do they see things in her and her lack of leadership through implicit bias than they wouldn't see from someone else? He's sort of dabbling into those sort of points. And, you know, that's up for people to believe or decide. I mean, that's not for me to agree with or not agree with, but that's what he's saying. He's saying, you've got a Democrat who votes the party line. Why would you replace her?
Because you've got a Democrat who votes the party line. How about that?
Yeah, but I mean, he's a party person. He's definitely talking for, you know, they play the numbers. We have more Democrats than we don't have Democrats who vote. So that's who we need to appeal to. And so he's not really looking about, you know, I asked him, I said, hey, she doesn't talk to the business crowd, the conservatives, the moderates. She doesn't reach out. People feel like she doesn't want to meet them halfway. And he says, well, why should they? Why should she? Why should she pretend like she agrees with them and pander to them and then go vote a different way? It's better that she's honest and she's upfront. So, you know, he's got a certain very hardline party progressive, you know, attitude. He says things, of course, that are much harsher. They come across a lot harsher than how somebody else might say it. But essentially, at the end of the day, what he's saying is, from the party's perspective, Kathy votes the party way. Why should we get rid of her? That's
Well, this was, of course, the second time when a podcast of yours, Josh, blew up into an unimaginable controversy after Ed St. George delivered his views on gender and Megan Harmon a month ago or so. And of course, at that time, the Women's Political Committee got all enraged and put out a statement attacking him. And so I assume that the Women's Political Committee will now do the same for DeRocca, who was at pains to trash both Kristen Sneddon and Deborah Schwartz in that. Can we expect that, in the next 24 hours or not? And if not, why not, Josh?
Hey, he defended, he likes Megan Harmon. He was not very a fan of Deborah Schwartz, and I don't think he's a big fan of Nina Johnson. But no, you're not going to see that, because those groups who complained about Ed's comments are closely aligned with the Democratic Party. And so you're just not, you know, when you have to look at sort of when people complain and there's a backlash, you have to look at sort of the alliances behind the scene. No one's going to come out against DeRocca. And
so who is it? Luz Reyes Martin, huh? Is the one who's got her finger on the scale on that, huh?
I don't know who has the finger on the scale there. She is, I believe, the president of the WPC.
Okay. All right. Well, I know you got to go get kids, Josh. So thanks for joining us. And
Jerry, you left it out. You left it out though. DeRocca took a shot at you. I defended you on Facebook. I defended you. Huh? And there's no thanks. All you can grumble is about the Giants. I get it.
I don't know. Calling me a gadfly, I don't know. I guess, okay, I don't know. I thought the strange part was saying he's a gadfly without a political base. Why would I need a political base? What am I running for? I'm not running for anything. So we call them, DeRocca, we call them subscribers, and we have a lot of them. And thank you very much for that. But he has no political base. Okay, see, he doesn't get journalism at all. He never has, he never will.
And we have argued about that extensively, and the role we do versus the role that party activists do.
Yeah. Never mind. All right, Jade Martinez-Pogue and Josh Molina, thanks so much for being with us. We will see you next time on Newsmakers. Take care. Stay safe.